Hello and welcome to This Inspired Life. My name is Andy Taylor. In the last video, I started the process of taking you through each of the phases of creating life by design. Now, if you remember what we talked about, phase one is actually focusing on your outcomes. So what outcomes do you want for your life in whatever period you want to use the process over. So it could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever is right for you. And the first phase is to focus on your outcomes. And then the second phase that we haven't actually gotten to in a video yet is about designing your objectives. So what objectives are going to lead you to those outcomes and make them real? And then the third phase is the detail phase. So it's what projects can you work on today that will achieve those objectives, which will get you to those outcomes. Now, this video is by way of a follow-up to the previous video, which was all about, as you remember, the outcomes and setting the outcomes. Now, I gave you some ideas as to the life areas to really focus on when setting your outcomes. And one of those was emotional intelligence. Now, even though there is so much information out there about emotional intelligence, there's not really anything clear as to what it actually is, how to define it, and how to get more of it, whether it's a natural ability, whether it's something people are born with or not, or whether it's a skill that can be learned and developed. Now, I fall firmly in the second camp in as much as I believe it's something everybody is born with to some degree or other, and we can hone it. So we can develop it over time if we feel we need to. Now, with that said, this video is also a standalone video. So if you're joining me because this video cropped up in your YouTube search, first of all, welcome and thank you for joining me on the channel. And secondly, please feel free to check out the channel, check out the other videos. I'm sure that you'll find something else useful here. But this video is basically focusing on the 4 things that people with high emotional intelligence don't do. So you could see that as the 4 things to stop doing to develop your emotional intelligence. Okay, now number 1 is criticizing others. Emotionally intelligent people don't criticize others. They, as I recommend everybody does, we should always go through life with a critical air in as much as we don't take anything on face value. We question what we're being told. We question our preferences. We question whether or not something is working for us or right for us in any given circumstance. So from that perspective, being critical, as in questioning, is a really important skill. What I mean by criticizing others, however, and the one thing that emotionally intelligent people don't do, is to criticize others in the sense of you criticize somebody's lack of intelligence in order to make you seem smarter, or you criticize somebody's fashion sense in order to make you seem more stylish. Right? So in other words, it's the age-old chestnut of tearing somebody down in order to build yourself up. That's a no-win scenario. Nobody wins in that. You might feel better in the moment, but trust me, longer term, you will feel like shit because it's just not a nice thing to do. And emotionally intelligent people most certainly don't do that. The second thing is dwelling on the past. Now, this is the second thing that emotionally intelligent people do not do, is we don't dwell on the past, on history. Things happen to us in the past. They develop our path and they create the situation and the life that we might be living right now, but we don't dwell on it. Okay, so, and I say we because I do consider myself to be fairly emotionally intelligent. I'm quite open about that, and I'll admit that to anybody. I consider myself to have a fairly high degree of emotional intelligence because I never criticize other people in the sense of bringing them down to build myself up. And the same is true of this. I don't dwell on what's gone before. It happened. There's no way of going back in time and undoing it. What we can do at best is to learn from it. Right? So if there's a lesson there, we should take it on board, we should learn from it, and we should develop ourselves and create this sense of personal growth, ongoing personal growth through failure. Failure is the biggest teacher, is the best teacher. Also, it's said by an awful lot of people, and they're not wrong. In order to fully know success, you need to know failure. Because if you try something new and you don't fail at least once on your way to succeeding, then you're not really trying hard enough. That's actually a piece of wisdom. Again, that's a piece of wisdom in this area that I agree with, in as much as I think when you try something new, you are going to suck at it at first. You look at these videos, for example. This is my first project involving YouTube. So This Inspired Life is my first YouTube project. Never been on camera before in my entire life. In fact, I was joking with my fiance just the other day. We were talking about the channel in these videos, and I was saying that, if you'd have asked me to record a video or to go on camera and record and speak in front of a video camera 6 months ago, I would have laughed in your face, because it's just, it never crossed my mind. I did tentatively and very reluctantly take part in a group activity online in a Facebook group I was in a year and a half ago, actually nearly 2 years ago. Was it 2 years? Yeah, about a year and a half ago. And it was basically a Valentine's message to a singles group that I was a member of at the time, and it's actually where I met my fiance. And the video I put out there, the video I put up on this channel, on this page, was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. And I just hated myself on camera. I hated how I looked. I hated how I sounded. But I did it anyway. And then I just forgot about it. So, I went through the entire year and a half until very recently, without even considering being on camera. But the message that I've got and what I've created in that time, the process of life by design, and actually realizing that we are the masters of our own destiny, we are the creators of our own future, is a really important imperative to remember. And I think it's a message that everybody needs to at least touch on at least once in their life, is to realize that you are in charge. You get to choose the reality that you want to live. You get to choose the life that you want to have and what you want in it. So going back to this particular video, I digressed a little bit there, because, the past does not dictate your future. Your past results are no indicator of your future successes. Okay, so many people will not try something today because they tried it 3 years ago and it didn't work. That's no way to go about life. That's no way to live. Because if you don't attempt to do something again after a period of time has passed, you're not learning anything. And you've not learned anything from that previous experience either. So without dwelling on the past, it is important to look at it. It is important to glance back and see how far you have come, because that's a wonderful yardstick to gauge your progress right now. And again, in the conversation with my fiance with regards to me recording videos, she looked back on that Valentine's Day video and she said, wow, you're just completely different. You're so much more confident now, and you talk so much clearer now. And I like to think that's true. I've just basically realized that I have this message, I have a voice and I have things of value to say and to share with people. So here I am. So the third thing that people with high emotional intelligence don't do is that they don't worry about the future. And when I say that, it's not that they don't think about the future, they don't plan for the future, they don't set goals or they don't set outcomes. At the end of the day, that's the whole point of this follow-up video, is to back up the previous one where we're talking about setting your desired outcomes, what you want your life to be like. So we do think about the future, and we create the vision that we want for our life. So we create our life vision for our future and the outcomes that we want in order for that life vision to be, right? But we don't worry about it. So many successful people, if you ask the top 100 most successful people in the world how they got to where they are, the chances are that 90% or more will tell you that they set their goals, they set their outcomes, they established the outcomes that they wanted, but at the time, they had no clue how they were going to get there. So it's not that they're worrying about how am I going to get there. They just set it and they forgot it. And that's what I was encouraging you to do in the last video, which was once you've figured out your outcome, once you've identified what outcome you want to have in your life and how you want your life to be in your year, 5 years, 10 years, 3 years time, whatever it might be for you. Once you have that in mind and it's clear in your mind that that is what you want to achieve, that's what you want your life to be like, then you just don't dwell on it, don't focus on it and kill it, because it's like holding on to a little bird too tight. You'll eventually suffocate it and kill it. So that's kind of a morose metaphor, I know, but hey, I'm going with it. So once you have your outcome, you can just focus on it to create it, but then don't worry about getting there. Don't worry about how you're going to get there. Just focus then and switch off from the outcome. So have it in your mind, but don't dwell on it. Don't worry about it. Don't concern yourself with how you're going to get there. Just know that that's where you're going to get to, right? And the fourth thing that people with high emotional intelligence don't do is that they don't have too high an expectation of the people around them, right? When you expect a lot of other people, when you have high expectations of other people, you put pressure on them, because if they're friends or they're close family or friends, and you think highly of them, you love them, you care for them, you want to see the best for them, and you're trying your hardest to help them achieve more, you put an awful lot of pressure on them. And number one, that's just not fair on them, because they may not be in a situation where they are ready to take that next step, to jump on the development wagon and start the process. You might love personal development, you might love coaching, you might love Tony Robbins or whoever it is that's your inspiration for making changes. But because you do, doesn't mean to say other people do. So when you try and put too much pressure through expectation on other people to be at your level and to play at your level, it's grossly unfair on them, and the chances are you're going to be disappointed. Because when people don't meet your level of expectation, you can't help but be disappointed. Because number one, if it's someone that you've tried to help, you've focused, you've chosen somebody in your circle of friends or family, and you thought, right, I'm going to help you to start that business, or I'm going to help you lose that weight, or whatever it might be for you. When you commit to helping them, if they are not committed themselves to achieving that outcome, you are going to feel not only disappointed that they didn't achieve it, but you're going to start feeling like you are not good enough because you weren't able to help them, right? So that's really worth bearing in mind. So just to recap, the 4 things that people with high emotional intelligence don't do. Number 1, we don't dwell on the past, right? We don't dwell on the past. We focus on it and we look at it, we look back on it to learn. Okay, we look back on it to learn, but we don't focus on it, we don't dwell on it, we don't let it dictate our future. The second thing, we don't criticize other people. Okay, they're in the wrong order, but there's no particular order. These are just 4 things that people with high emotional intelligence don't do. So we don't criticize other people, we don't bring them down to build ourselves up and make ourselves feel good. No way, not a chance. Okay, because that's a no-win scenario. You make them feel like crap. so you can feel good in the moment, but eventually you'll feel like crap too, right? And the third thing that we don't do is we don't worry about the future. So we can focus on the future, we can set our outcomes, and we can set our course, where we want to go, what we want to achieve, the outcome that we want for our life, how we want our life to be. But we don't worry about how we're going to get there. And we don't worry about the many thousands of things that could happen to make that not happen, right? Because we're flexible, we will change the course and do what we need to in order to make that happen. When you're fully committed, that's what you do. So we don't worry about the future. We think about it, we plan it, we visualize it, and we have it clear in our heads that that's the future that we want for us. But we don't worry about how we're going to get there. And the fourth thing is that we don't have too high expectations of other people. So I was trying to think of a better way to say it, but there really isn't. We don't think ourselves too highly of other people. So basically, we don't have too high an expectation of others. Because when you really dig in and you really commit to helping someone that doesn't want to be helped, there's never, ever a winning scenario with that. Because if they're not ready to do the work themselves or commit fully to achieving the outcome that you're determined to help them achieve, then they're going to be disappointed, they're not going to achieve it, they're going to feel like crap, and you're going to be disappointed and you're going to feel like you failed. Okay, now I know I mentioned that when you look at your past, failure is the best teacher. When it's through having too high an expectation of somebody, that should be the lesson that you learn from that failure, is the fact that, okay, so maybe I went too far in. I went too much all in too soon with that person. They weren't ready. So that's why it didn't work. Okay, so I hope that made sense. I mean, I kind of lost my words towards the end there, but I hope it made sense and I hope you stuck with me and it still resonated with you, because it is critical. I mean, as I mentioned at the outset, in the previous video where we focused on the outcomes, the key life areas, emotional intelligence is one of those, intellect and emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence is the focus of this video for the simple fact that it's not as easy to quantify as relationships, as love, as finances, as health and well-being and fitness, and the other categories that I suggested you look at for your outcomes, at least to start with. Okay, so I hope this all made sense. And another recap, just hopefully so I can get my words out this time. Emotionally intelligent people don't criticize others with the purpose of bringing them down to build themselves up. We don't dwell on the past. So we look at it and we think about it from a reference point of learning, but nothing else. We don't dwell on it. We don't let the past dictate our future. We don't worry about the future. We think about it and we visualize it clearly in order to set our outcomes and our goals, if you use that terminology. But we don't worry about it. And lastly, we don't have too high an expectation of the people around us, because it's just not fair on them, and it will inevitably lead you to feeling bad about yourself if you commit all in to helping someone that isn't ready to be helped. So with that said, I'm going to leave it here. Again, I hope it's made sense. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and please subscribe to the channel and leave us a like or a thumbs up. And I'll see you again very soon in the next one.